I found out about a year ago that there's bushes in my yard that I thought were kind of okay. Turns out they're Japanese bush honeysuckle, which is an invasive plant that crowds out, the native trees and bushes, shades out the floor of the woods, keeps things from growing up. And as soon as I figured that out, I started cutting them off, and then you put a little Roundup on the end you cut off. Then you can leave the limbs lay. But anyways, it was hot, humid, and I went out there and I just went ahead and got started on it last summer, 2022, and it was rough going with the chronic fatigue and all that. It's just tough in that heat. And wearing a mask a lot of times just for any fumes from cutting and the dust and whatever. So, and then I noticed in the creek behind the gas station in Hayesville, the whole creek bank back there is just covered with lots of big bush honeysuckle. So I called the gas station. I talked to the people there, and I asked if they cared if I went back there on the creek bank and all that and cut the bush honeysuckle, and they said, "Yeah, I'll go ahead." And so I'd already been back there a little bit in the heat of the summer and cut off a bunch of stuff, and you can see some of it laying here. This sewer ditch, smelly sewer ditch, sewer creek. Everybody's sewer running in this thing, except for mine. Mine does not run in there. But anyways, so I'm working my way up through here to go get more. There's the biggest one I've seen over there. I'm going right now in this video to cut it. I've got the little saw. I've got a little Roundup in a bottle. And so that's what this video is. So anyways, I just I want to show this. I hope people are checking their woods, looking at videos on YouTube, and learning about bush honeysuckle and winter creeper vines, and do what you can to cut them, put a little poison on them, and be as safe about it as possible. Don't just poison everything all over the place. But anyways, Roundup will not work on the winter creeper. You have to use something like triclopyr. It's all very dangerous stuff, but be careful with it. Anyways, try not to spray it anymore. You have to spray it earlier in the day. Don't spray it late in the evening when animals are going to come out and walk through it when it's wet. That way it's dry. It's had a chance to dry before the animals start to move after dark and that sort of thing. You know what I'm saying? That sort of thing. And keep a lookout for turtles, so you ain't spraying turtles that are out there crawling around. But anyways, here's some video. Let me say a few words about these mini chainsaws. I don't know how long these have been out. I just noticed them like last year, but they don't cost much money. You get one or two batteries, one or two chains. They're not super well made, I would guess, but they're kind of handy. But what I'm thinking about is I can see in the future news reports, documentaries about these little chainsaws, about people being hurt by them, because they're so easy to get careless with. Just like the snow blowers, there's all these little news reports about people getting their hand in a snow blower and that kind of thing. These things, when you're using them, it's so easy to get casual with it. It is an actual chainsaw. It's the same chain that's on a chainsaw, but it's in this little handheld thing, and little one-handed deal. It doesn't make roaring noises that sound mean and scary, and you can very easily start getting your hand too close to that chain and putting this thing near your leg too much. I think there's just going to be a whole lot of people going to the emergency room, and unfortunately, a lot of kids and maybe even some animals. They have a little safety on them to lock the trigger, but I wouldn't count on that. If you store this thing or have it in your house or a shed, treat it like a loaded gun. Make sure it's unloaded and keep it out of reach of kids. Because I'm telling you, this thing, they look like a toy, and I could just see little kids grabbing this thing and fooling around with it and getting each other hurt or themselves or whatever. Make sure you pull the battery and put it up somewhere, and store the batteries over someplace else, and store the saw itself separate from the batteries. Put it in a lock cabinet or something, because I'm not one of these be insanely safe with every dang thing there is, like hyper fanatic about it. But I'm telling you, these things are just so easy for somebody to just grab and hit that trigger, and it's going. And yeah, there's when I was using it, I found myself getting my hand just a little too casually close in using it, and they bounce a lot when you try to cut with it. They really need a smaller, finer chain. The chain that's on there it bites too hard. So when you try to cut something, it just bounces, bounces, bounces. If you sort of hold it with two hands and help guide it easily and don't try to hog into it, it takes away some of that bouncing problem. But a lot of times you're cutting little stuff, and you have to hold the thing you're cutting with one hand and cut with the other hand, because you're cutting some flexible thing that's like these bushes down low, and it's going to pinch if you don't hold it sometimes. So just a little prediction. I see news stories being made about these things in the future, with lots of people getting hurt by these, and unfortunately kids and so on. And then just a little word of caution. I would definitely always pull the battery on this when you put it away or you're done with it. Don't leave it laying around with the battery. Pull the battery, put the batteries out in the shed or wherever you feel safe keeping a battery, and put the saw up in the house, or keep it separate. Keep them very separate so that kids can't just grab it and start playing with it.